Hello and welcome to another standard video. Today I'm revisiting the Mardu control archetype, sort of built around Catramos, the New Dawn, as a win condition that can also draw us additional cards whenever a card is exiled from a graveyard or from the battlefield, and then eventually turns into a 4/4 Menace lifelink indestructible if 7 or more cards total are in exile. So the reason I want to bring this up again is because Rest in Peace is pretty well positioned right now. It shuts off all those Sultai Kavero Reanimator decks. It's also pretty good against the Izzet Spelementals deck, since all their creatures now are prohibitively expensive to cast. It's also effective against the Landfall decks, where they can't loop their Fabled Passage with I Still Explore, and even against the other Badger Mold decks, they usually have Nature's Rhythm with Harmonize, so we can now also exile it so they don't get it back. So plenty of matchups where we don't mind having a main deck Rest in Peace. So then a good deck to kind of build around it is one that uses Catramos. Then we have even more graveyard hate with Ghost Vacuum, which is maybe a bit better with Catramos in the sense that we can activate it multiple times to draw multiple cards with it, and it's also a little bit cheaper to get down. And then if we're going for this more controlling style, I also wanted to try the Unholy Annex plus Firdock Core combo. The 3-mana enchantment can draw us an extra card at the cost of 2 life, unless we control a demon, in which case now our opponent loses 2 and we gain 2. Occasionally we can also unlock the Ritual Chamber to make a 6/6 demon, but we're mostly interested in the Unholy Annex. And then the Firdock Core, being a changeling, means it's also a demon, so now that alongside the Unholy Annex can not only draw us extra cards, but also act as a win condition. Occasionally can also pay 4 mana to turn the core into a 4/4 creature until end of turn, so that can also help close out the game. And then rounding out the deck, we've got a ton of removal, so at 1 mana, the full set of Requiting Hex, alongside 2 copies of Seam Rip, which also has a bit more synergy with Catramos. This deck is also better at producing white mana on turn 1 as opposed to red mana, otherwise I would maybe consider Burst Lightning as well in this slot. And then the Artist's Talent can function as another card draw engine, which can also maybe get rid of unwanted cards in certain matchups, like if our opponent's not a graveyard deck, we can get rid of our graveyard hate. If we draw our second Catramos, we can get rid of it, and against control we can get rid of some of our useless removal spells, so it kind of helps churn through the deck. And then if we level it up, it can discount our spells, eventually letting our burn spells also deal 2 additional damage, so that will impact our Lightning Helix in this deck, now dealing 5 damage as opposed to 3. Can also gain more life to help out against aggro and to maybe help offset the Unholy Annex if we haven't drawn our Firdock Core yet. And then we have the full set of Day of Judgment as a nice reset button against all the creature decks. And then Inevitable Defeat, a flexible answer, which also helps us burn the opponent out. Unfortunately, this causes loss of life instead of dealing damage to the opponent directly, so it's not enhanced by a level 3 talent, so that's something to keep in mind. And then the mana base is just a lot of shock lands, verge lands, and then 1 of each basic, so no real room for additional utility lands, but we shouldn't need them. So yeah, that's our deck. Now let's jump in some games and see how the deck does. Alright, we're on the draw. We have what looks like a Keeper. Good mix of interaction and card draw. Facing red-black. And the Terminus, okay. Opponent's ramping. For now, just play another tap land, I think. Don't expect many targets for Requiting Hex. Mardu colors, maybe a Demonic Pact deck, who knows. So, could play either one of these 3 drops. Annex is more likely to get hit by maybe a Get Lost next turn. I'm not using the extra mana from Firdock Core. Catramos could maybe be exiled somehow. I think I go for Annex. We'll at least get 1 card out of it. And then next turn we'll have a demon. Alright, opponent just running out, nowhere to run. So, definitely looks like a Demonic Pact deck with a new Iroh. So finding Inevitable Defeat would be useful to get rid of their Demonic Pact. Opponent got a Greed's Gambit. And they're probably gonna gift it to me very soon. Alright, so can expect them to play Iroh next turn, or Harmless Offering to give the Greed's Gambit away. Sadly, don't have any instant speed answers to Iroh, since it survives Requiting Hex. So then playing Ketramos with the Greed's Gambit feels pretty bad. So I think I'm playing the core. Question is whether I play an untapped land to maybe draw into a Lightning Helix and still be able to cast it. I'll just go for a tap land. Yep, there's a T-Master. So we get the Gambits. And then I'm probably gonna Day of Judgment next turn, so there's no real point in hexing just to prevent 2 damage. Alright, so I get to play a core into Day of Judgment. At least we're mostly a creatureless deck, so we can ignore part of the Greed's Gambit. First draw and then discard. Opponent still loses 2 life, and we found Inevitable Defeat. Although now getting rid of the Gambit still means we have to discard 3 cards. But I can maybe answer a Demonic Pact. Another Greed's Gambit. Can they immediately gift it? If not, I can punish them with a defeat. 3 mana. No second Iroh. Alright, that's huge. So now I can Day of Judgment away the bats and still defeat the Gambit. First draw, then discard to the Gambit. And maybe a third core's not going to be needed. Wait for them to try and gift the Gambit before we try and take it out, I think. Opponent's beseeching, sacking the food token. So we'll see what they get. Harmless Offering. Wait for them to target Greed's Gambit, and then in response, Inevitable Defeat. Opponent discards 3 and loses 6. I guess I didn't even have to Day of Judgment to get rid of the bats if I didn't want to, since Inevitable Defeat would have forced them to sacrifice 3 of them. But then again, it's not like I had much else going on. Alright, so of course we do have our own Gambit to worry about, so Ketramos doesn't do much for me. Although, yeah, I guess also activating the core doesn't work since I would still have to sack it end of turn. Same with making a demon token. So we're kind of just chilling, which is fine, I guess. We have 6 points of burn in hand, this is dealing them 2 each turn. And at some point I can still activate the cores to get 4 damage in. Possible Ketramos is worse than a land at this point. Defeat can also exile the Terminus, should they want to harness it. So, yeah, good Helix face, could still be an answer to Iroh, and we're not really in a hurry. Another defeat. So how do we feel about animating a core? Put our opponent to 7, to 5, and then next turn we should have lethal. Or if I play a land, I can defeat, Helix defeat, and then they're also dead. Alright, I guess we'll do that. They just need to present a target for Inevitable Defeat. And we drew another one. Keep the Helix. And I can also just send both cores next turn, and yeah, opponent knows that they're dead. Awesome, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the play. We have maybe not the most exciting hand, lacking some card draw. But yeah, if Rest in Peace is good in the matchup, our hand could be decent. One shock land to enable the Verges, so our mana is perfect. And facing a green deck, so yeah, can get the Rest in Peace down. Still going to be relevant if our opponent's running I Still Explorer. Blue-green. So not exactly sure what to make of this. Could be Kona combo. In which case at least Lightning Helix can deal 3 to it. Now Fabled Passage and a Banter Mole, so yeah, it is a Landfall deck. Okay, I guess we can hex the Banter Mole. Or I can wait and use Seam Rip so we can keep up hex for future turns. Alright, found Catramos, excellent. So now I get to play Catramos, Seam Rip the Cub, draw a card. And find our second Catramos. Currently 1 card in exile. Ancient Cornucopia, so our opponent is going bigger. Talent was useful. Can play level up. And then now we can maybe loot away the second Catramos. Day of Black Sun does remove the Indestructible on Catramos, so that's relevant. Alright, good thing we have a second copy then. So I can play it, or I can Talent first. Get rid of a Hex. And then play Catramos. And then probably just play a tap line for now. Now 4 cards in exile. So we can level up our talent some more. There's also the core we could activate to hit them for 4. Possible they have some instant speed removal that can hit it. I'm kind of just happy leveling these up for now. And then I could keep land in hand to loot away next turn, since we have plenty of mana as is. Day of Judgment's not going to be particularly useful. So yeah, maybe we'll just Helix them, so we can loot twice. Find another Helix, which will now deal 5 with the leveled up talents. And now Catramos is active. So we've got some pressure. Massing, say, Earthbends onto Demolition Fields. No point in using the Hex. Catramos has Menace. Still prefer not exposing the core. And this is going to be 7 damage. Opponent sacks Fabled Passage, lets us draw. Possible they have a counterspell. Yep. Okay, gaining some life in the process. So just counter or draw this card. We still get to loot at least. Find another core, which I can play for 1 mana. And a Ghost Vacuum's not particularly helpful, since we already have a rest in peace. Find another helix. I'll keep that one. That's another 7 damage coming their way. Okay, and pass it back. Earthbender Ascension's fine. Their opponent could technically double block. But now with the Day of Judgment we can clear a path. And our opponent scoops it up. Awesome. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play. We have a Rest in Peace, and then a good mix of removal, some card selection with Artist's Talent. I'll keep it. Could start with Godless Shrine tapped if we think we need to Hex, and then play another tap land on turn 2. Otherwise I would have started with Foundry, since we know we can play the talent on 2 no matter what, and I might draw Verge, so I don't need to deal myself 2 damage. Godless Shrine Scavengers, our opponent on the Black-White Skeletons deck. So I'm happy to Hex the Scavenger. I can wait, since they typically do not play any protection spells, unlike the mono-white build. So our removal's going to be key. Rest in Peace is somewhat relevant, since they do have cards like Forsaken Miner. I guess we'll take out the Scavenger now. Could also play the Artist's Talent first, so we get to loot when we play the Rest in Peace. And another case into the Forsaken Miner. Alright, so I could just Seam Rip the Miner, or we can eventually get it with Rest in Peace. Either way, start by casting the Seam Rip, can discard a land. Yeah, I guess for now exile the Miner. Although if they do have Sheltered by Ghosts, they can maybe exile the Seam Rip and get their skeleton back, whereas the token's gone for good. So maybe that makes more sense. And then play Rest in Peace, discard Foundry. And draw Hex. Alright, so my line sequencing could have worked out better. I'll take a Day of Judgment off the top. As our opponent's going very wide. Yeah, I guess we'll start by hexing. And then do I discard a land or not? I think I still need to keep digging. Alright, found the Day of Judgment, so we'll take 6, but next turn I can wipe the board at least. For now, level this up. Could have been in trouble if they had the 3-mana enchantment giving skeletons 1 additional power and haste. So I get to wipe the board, and we'll hang on to the Requiting Hex. But it also now means that they solved all 3 cases. So those can get additional cards for them. Essentially turns into a Demonic Tutor once the case is solved. Do I keep up Inevitable Defeat, or do I activate here? I think I can level this up once again, and then I can still hex a hasty skeleton from our opponents. I'm assuming they are gonna get the lost corpses here, or corpses of the lost, I should say. Makes a hasty skeleton, which we can hex. And then defeat the enchantment, perhaps. So Lightning Helix, while good, may not be exactly what I need. I guess our opponent's not going to be able to descend since we have a Rest in Peace in play, so that helps. I would love to find a more steady source of card advantage. Catramos would go a long way. Yeah, I think I ditched the Helix, but it's a close call. With another talent I would get to loot twice, so then we'll find whatever we want in no time. Sure. So then now I think I do keep up the defeats. And then I'm probably better off exiling the skeleton token as opposed to the corpses, because they already have one in play. Our opponent actually gets another case first. And a Forsaken Miner. I'll hit the miner. I guess now I could have made a case for exiling the corpses of the lost, since then we would not have been attacked this turn. Keep the Helix. And a Fairdock Core. So I could level up. Play this for 1 mana, but then I wouldn't be able to Helix. The core's great if we find our demon enchantments, but yeah, currently I think I gotta just pass. United Battlefront could hit multiple permanents at once. Double Seam Rip, so can get rid of our Rest in Peace as well. So going for Rest in Peace and the leveled up talent. Alright, and response will deal with the token. Day of Judgment, I don't think is quite good enough here. Found Catramos. If we can keep that in play, that would be great. 22 cards in exile. And I can get my Rest in Peace back, perhaps. Also down to just keep Seam Rip available, since our opponent might find an answer for Catramos in the form of Sheltered by Ghosts. So then I can maybe free it once again. Although playing Seam Rip now would draw me a card right away, so that is quite tempting. So maybe get back my talent. Or do we care more about Rest in Peace? Our opponent being able to descend if they sack the case is a bit of a problem, so I think I actually prioritize Rest in Peace. Alright, and then hang on to the land in case we need to discard it, I think. Helpful Weaver. And then we could see Sheltered by Ghosts here. Or maybe the opponent's going to tutor one up. So now I wouldn't mind another answer to their creatures. And we found one. Okay, so Catramos can attack. And then just keep up inevitable defeats. Hope they go for Sheltered by Ghosts. And I can also ignore the ward with inevitable defeat for what it's worth. I'll take 3 just to see what else they want to do. It's a nowhere to run. So with a pair of those, I guess they can deal with Catramos. So that's probably their plan. Okay. And another one. So now, what do we get rid of? Maybe get back our Artist's Talent, so we get to loot some more, as opposed to their creature. It is going to hit pretty hard next turn, and the case can find more ways to enhance it. So we do have more answers to their creatures than we do their enchantments. Yeah, I think I still get back the talent here. Found the annex. And another rest in peace. So play the annex. Probably could have kept up black instead of white-red, in case we draw a requiting hex. The core I should probably keep to enable the annex. Alright, do we survive this turn? This has double strike, so even with Sheltered by Ghosts it would only be 8 damage. Alright, Battlefronts. Could be bad, thanks to the Scavenger giving them more counters. They just found one helpful Weaver. I'm taking 8. Alright, so I gotta play the core and then hope to draw into something, pretty much. Ghost Vacuum is not gonna cut it. Would be a redraw, or a double redraw, so then I could still draw Helix or a Requiting Hex. So maybe it's still better than a land. Found the Helix. Okay, so now we can Helix the Spider. Can do that at instant speed. Ooh, opponent's making a mistake here. By giving this a counter, they both become legendary spiders, so they only get to keep one in play. Yep. Yeah, you only make that mistake once. So case is solved. Probably getting another Corpses of the Lost. Yeah. So I guess we still Helix. Well, the skeleton would be 4-powered. I guess I'm still better off dealing with the spider. So then I'm still alive. Possible they put the +1 counter on the spider token. Target the scavenger. Say no to probably the core. And the land. Take 6. Find another Ghost Vacuum. I guess our opponent is at 6, so if we just animate the core, we get 4 damage in, plus 2 more from the annex. So that should be game. Is what I wish I would have done, although sadly that's not what really happened, and instead you can watch the following train wreck unfold as I overthink everything. The demon token is a bit more guaranteed unless they draw an answer for it, which is also possible. Seam Rip or Sheltered by Ghosts would kill me. So I think I'm leveling up here. Play this for free, get a redraw. And then I think I gotta say no to the Ghost Vacuum, since I need the land to cast some of my 4-drops. Now I can discard the lands. And find another Annex. So Annex would gain me 4 life, put our opponent to 2, but then I die to the double striking pirate token. I guess I could still draw into something here, since we have a mana left. So I need to draw into a Requiting Hex. Got 2 draw steps. That's a Helix, and another Annex. Wow. This game could not have been any closer. 1 extra mana, and our opponent's dead. Well, GG's. that was a fun one. On to the next one. Alright, we're on the play. We have what looks like a keepable hand. Got core plus annex. Talent to cycle through the deck. And Day of Judgment for creature decks. I'll take 2. Turn 2, and a Banter Mole Cub. We'll start with the Unholy Annex. Only drew shock lands, so it's a bit painful. A land can go. And now with double Annex, as long as we keep the core in play, we have our win condition taken care of. So don't mind seeing more creatures. So now every Earthbender land taps for 3 mana. Earthbender Ascension. Anything else? They will get to trigger a bunch of landfall here with all the Earthbender lands returning. But definitely have to cast a Day of Judgment here. Alright, at least we get an extra Llanowar Elves for free. And then Ketramos can eventually help out. Is there anything I want to discard? Not really. Maybe the second Annex is overkill. It's going to be a while before I can deploy it. Maybe it's Ketramos, since I don't have many ways of enabling it at the moment, just the inevitable defeat. And I may need to find more cheap interaction or even another board wipe. So then next turn I could go core into another Annex, which is a pretty nice sequence. Defeat, might have to go for the Ascension. And there's another one. And not removing their creature can be risky if they have Harmonizer plus a fetch land. No fetch lands in the graveyard at least for a potential I Still Explore. But yeah, this lane's already hitting pretty hard. Found another Day of Judgment. So if I go for core plus Annex, I gain 4 up to 8. Can our opponents deal 8 damage next turn? With Basing Say, it's at least another 2. So then I'm dead to a fetch land. But they didn't seem to have one last turn. I think I risk it, because it puts me in a pretty good position going forward. Just going for inevitable defeat feels a bit lackluster. And I would rather deal with the Ascension itself. I do get to loot twice more. Third Annex is probably overkill. Alright, let's see if we're dead. They have the eye still, but luckily no fetch land yet. They milled a land, so that's one more. And an Esper Origins can maybe mill a fetch, which would be game over with double Ascension. Okay, they did not mill a Fabled Passage. So we are still alive, but barely. Taking 7. And now they milled the tunnel, but they've already played 2 lanes. Alright, so now we've got to stabilize from here. Definitely gonna involve Day of Judgment. Although, does that leave me dead to Basing Say is a question. If I Day of Judgment, I'll still have 3 mana available at most. I do get to loot. But I don't see how inevitable defeat is any better for me here. So I'll start here. Find another core. So I can either keep up extra mana for Lightning Helix or play the extra core to get an extra draw discard. Yeah, the only difference is between Requiting Hex or Lightning Helix, and haven't drawn either so far. So maybe actually go for Ghost Vacuum. Can also exile the Esper Origins. And then I can still draw either of the instant speed answers. Find another core and a Seam Rip. Since they have double origins, I may as well wait on the Ghost Vacuum. And then only exile the other origins in response. I guess in hindsight, a third Annex still would have been decent. Opponent says no to Harmonizer, but draws one anyway. So we should be able to exile this with a Seam Rip at least. This turn, how much mana are we working with? 6, 7, 8. Not quite enough to make a Demon and Inevitable Defeat. So then I'm probably just gonna Seam Rip, keep up Defeat, and I could play another core potentially. Alright, Helix is good insurance. So then maybe just Helix the land now. Or do I wait? I guess we'll wait. Let's play a land and pass. And then Ghost Vacuum is gonna go for the fetch land probably. So now we have 3 instant speed answers in hand. Another Esper Origins. First chance I get use Ghost Vacuum, but they might flash it back right away. Yep, that's fine. Alright, we will get the 4th copy. Forest attacks. Can certainly take 2. Could also animate the core actually to block, but I guess now it's too late. Alright, opponent's passing. So what's my plan? Probably wanna hex. If I Helix face now and defeat, I would put the opponent to 12. I can hit him with a core, put him to 8. So if I level up the talent twice, then Lightning Helix can deal 5 damage. The Annex and Inevitable Defeats aren't affected since they cause life loss instead of dealing non-combat damage, so those sadly don't synergize with it. And there's a Harmonizer. Into an Ascension. Sure. Can both Helix and Hex. So in response, we'll just Helix that one. Opponent does get more landfall triggers. But we have the Hex. Make sure to let the floating mana go away in case they have a protection spell. They did have a land left. So I guess if their last card is some sort of hexproof trick, I could still die. That works. Alright, and from here we should be able to burn them out pretty easily. Don't think this matters. Alright, so send in the core. Hit you for 4. And here's another 10. Alright, sweet. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw. Hand is decent. Got Annex plus core, some removal, some graveyard hate. And facing black-green. They must have their own hex if they kept up Overgrown Tomb here. Does look like the Sultai Graveyard deck, so Rest in Peace is going to be effective. Although we know for a fact that they have an answer in Wistfulness. So can just, I guess, bait it out with a Talent for now. Since we don't have much else going on. Yep. Talon down. And now, still gonna wait on Rest in Peace since their graveyard's not very full. And then maybe start with Annex, and then if I draw a land next turn I can go core plus a 2-drop. And start draining them. Another Overlord. Mill the Bookworm and the Speaker, which can get a Kivero next turn. So yeah, I can still set up here. Core into Talent seems fine. And a Vacuum is going to be excellent too. Opponent plays Speaker. Discards the Bringer of the Last Gift. So this is the perfect timing for a Rest in Peace. And then a Requiting Hex can probably go, and I'll play another Annex. And our opponent scoops it up, I'll take it. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw. We have core plus Annex, some removal. Just need a third land. Second Catramos. Still synergizes with Seam Rip and Defeat, but probably won't need both. Opponent's blue-black with a Super Shredder. Alright, probably need to Seam Rip that one before it gets out of hand. And a Siren, so blue-black mid-range. Found our lanes, so prioritize Annex, and then next turn we can core plus maybe Helix. Opponent could ninjutsu a Kaito, which we can still maybe defeat. Yep. But yeah, it's gonna hurt in the meantime.
The housewarming party has arrived. I've got you beat 6 different ways.
Perfect. I found the red mana. So I could now just defeat Kaito. I think that's better than Core plus Helix the Siren. Because then we would take another hit from Kaito. They get to draw another card. Of course, if they have another Kaito in hand, it's not ideal. Then going Core plus Helix. I'm still pretty far from Catramos plus defeat in the same turn. Yeah, let's just do this.
Don't worry, I've got an exit strategy.
Talon can help discard a Catramos. And yeah, looks like they do have another sneak creature. It's Shredder Rising. That one we can still Helix. Okay, so play the core. Possible they're keeping up Spell Snare here since they didn't replay the Siren, or they're afraid of a sweeper. But I think I still want to get the core in play to enable the Annex. And then I can Helix now, or I can wait since we're not going to draw here. See if this works. Bounce off to bounce it, fair enough. So that's what they were keeping up. And now they can sneak it back into play. With the amount of removal in hand, I still feel okay about our spot. Wouldn't mind an extra land. Opponent's going all out, so now Day of Judgment would be excellent. Another Annex isn't bad. So, could just go Annex plus Helix. Start with a Helix now, maybe. And they have another bounce off. Yeah, that's annoying, because we're also getting denied the life gain. So now, yeah, I think it's still just Annex. At least we get to gain 4 life and draw 2 cards. So we shouldn't be in danger of dying. And now Rest in Peace enables Catramos all the way. The Drowner could technically be an answer to Catramos. Shredder's back. And a Gifter, turning a creature into a 4/4. So yeah, that's a lot of damage here with the additional +1 counters. So yeah, once again, opponent has a mana up, so if it's another bounce off, they can once again deny the life gain from Inevitable Defeat. We know about Drowner, so Catramos is not a reliable blocker. So it might just be plan to defeat, hope to draw another instant speed answer, like a Requiting Hex or Lightning Helix. Making a Demon Token is also not reliable. We found a Hex at least. So I can maybe Hex the Siren now so I don't have to discard to hand size. And then 1 card still has to go. Make it a talent. I think I just take 4 and then maybe end of turn defeat. Could have also animated the core, but that's unlikely to work because they have the Drowner. And put on that 3, so they're just kind of dead to the Annex here if they can't close it out. They would need triple Dream Beavers. And bounce the Beavers, okay. I guess that does keep them alive from double Annex, technically. I'm at 1. Do you have another one? You do. So now I should just defeat the Beavers or anything else, doesn't really matter, because if they have another bounce off, I guess they cannot have another bounce off. Alright, in that case we'll just exile the Beavers. Opponent would fall to 2 and then Annex his game. Requiting Hex to take out their own creature, so it fizzles the life gain and the damage. Alright, they figured it out. But I'm also not dead, and we're in a pretty good position. So, have to be careful with Catramos that I don't die to it. And then our opponent can flash in a 2-1. So I could Day of Judgment. And then drain for 4, opponent's at 3. Versus make a Demon token, that's probably worse. Play this tapped, pass a turn, could still draw instant speed removal. Found the Hex, let's just hex this now. And there we have it, awesome, very close one here against the blue-black ninjas. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play, we have a decent hand. Core plus Annex is always nice, and then got some graveyard hate, some removal. Turn 1 planes. Don't hate my matchup against a mono-white aura deck, which your opponent seems to be on. This does have ward too, but inevitable defeat can ignore it. So this turn I have to decide if I want to Annex, or if I want to Hex, pay the ward. So the only kind of danger here is if I go for Annex, opponent next turn has Sheltered by Ghosts. Again, we can ignore the ward with defeat, but then if they also have Shard Mage's Rescue, it's a bit of a blowout. So the safest play would be Hex, pay the ward, but it's, you know, leaving a lot on the table as well. So I'm not hating the Annex gambit here. So Scavenger, do they have the Sheltered by Ghosts? Ethereal Armor instead. So we do have to watch out for Shard Mage's Rescue now. So I don't necessarily want to play into it. So I can go for Core and then still maybe Helix the Scavenger in their turn. And that way the Annex starts draining for 2 as well. Day of Judgment, of course, would be the cleanest answer. Another Scavenger. And a Weaver. So this is my opportunity to kind of check for Shard Mage's Rescue. And it looks like they have one. Alright, so they will get a whole bunch of +1 counters here, sadly. But should still survive. And then now we can defeat the Aerialist. Opponent's almost out of cards. Decline to pay the ward since our defeat's uncounterable. And then could just hex the scavenger now. Or I could helix the other scavenger perhaps. We're gonna gain 2 more end of turn. So it's kind of a close call. Just don't want to get blown out by another Shard Mage's Rescue. Yeah, I'll just hex. So it should be safe here. They had a vendor left over. Okay. So maybe next turn I can helix, make a demon token. Wait for them to give something double strike. And there's a Day of Judgment we were waiting on. Spider has double strike. Waiting's important if they top decked Sheltered by Ghosts, which they did. So we're at 8. If they attack all out, I can still block the Scavenger. If they attack with a Spider, I don't have to trade, but since we have a Day of Judgment, I may as well. Alright, so Day of Judgment, wipe the board, and our opponent's just too far behind at this point. Alright, so we got to see this Mardu control deck in action. And yeah, overall, Graveyard Hate is pretty well positioned in best of 1 at the moment. So a deck that's running a bunch of main deck Graveyard Hate that can take advantage of it with a card like Ketramos is pretty well positioned. And then the package of the Firdock core with the Unholy Annex is another nice one for a more controlling deck that isn't playing blue. So definitely give it a try if you have the cards for it, since it's a lot of fun. But for now, I want to thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed, and as always, have a nice day.